about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. Dali, 1-877-DOCDALI. So a couple days ago, we told you about this virus that they found in Alabama, and I didn't want anybody to panic. We don't have a lot of new data on it, but let me just kind of reiterate what's going on because it is a pretty big headline. And I don't want people panicking, but you need to know why experts are concerned that this could be something that becomes a future pandemic in humans. We don't want to let our guard down with these zoonotic illnesses. Zoonotic means the bug is usually found in animals, just like COVID and SARS used to be until it decided to cross over into humans after whatever the hell happened in the Wuhan lab happened. So this is definitely worth talking about again. And I'll keep you guys posted as we get updates. So the Camp Hill virus is what it's being named. It was found in Tallapoosa County, Alabama, but not in humans. It was discovered in shrews. It's a new virus, very similar to a couple other viruses, and they found them in shrews. Now, I don't know if I ever saw The Taming of the Shrew. A shrew is not supposed to be a human. A shrew is an animal. It's like a little mole-like animal, small. And researchers from the University of Queensland in Australia discovered this. Why Australians are in Alabama, I don't know, but they were there. Which always kind of confuses me. I'm really, really glad that, Australia is interested in our hemisphere and, interested in our continent. But I always find that fascinating when you see these studies where you're like, well, something on American soil was found by Australians. Well, nice. I'm glad you're here. Not sure why you're here, but and looking for and why didn't Americans find it first? But we got to give props to the Australians, and they might have talked to America saying, "Look, we think you might have something. Can we go visit Alabama?" And my guess is the CDC or Fauci at the time said, "Absolutely, have at it." Well, so anyway, they found this. So they named it Camp Hill. It's part of the Henipavirus family. Henipavirus family also owns Nipah and Hendra viruses. Those are ranked really high, according to the World Health Organization, as the biggest pandemic threats that have about a mortality of up to 70%. We don't know much about it, but apparently they found it in the kidneys of shrews. Now, if you remember Outbreak, that movie Outbreak with Dustin Hoffman, and they were showing that highly hemorrhagic virus, Ebola, was affecting the kidneys and these viruses, if they in animals like to infect or affect organs. Remember, they were looking at kidney cells, and I remember a medical student going, those aren't kidney cells. Really, they couldn't have actually used pathology that matched what they were saying. Really, come on, writers, please. I was going to upset my other medical students for telling me, we stop it, it's not a big deal. I'm like, it's a big deal to me because it's not accurate. But if we are seeing this virus be deadly, and how is it deadly? Is it deadly on, like for example, if something is killing a fish because it affects their fin, we're a little less nervous. But if an animal has a similar organ to us, and we know this virus has an affinity towards that organ, that does make us a little nervous. So a virus such as this that is, I guess, comfortable with organs that could be similar in both shrews and humans, they're concerned that not only can it affect the kidneys, it could cause brain inflammation, brain swelling, liver damage, spinal cord issue, because it's in that family of Nipah virus and Hendra virus that has been shown to cause this. This could be very concerning. Now, a lot of people are not alarmed because they're like, it's only in animals. It's a zoonotic illness. Most zoonotic illnesses do not travel to animals, but you're forgetting one very, very small detail. All right. In previous times, when we didn't have all these labs and all these countries wanting to screw around with biology and science, A virus in an animal, for the most part, stayed within the animal. It could jump. It could mutate and jump to humans. We have seen that happen. We've seen this with plague and other things. It can. But for the most part, nature gave us some protection. Now we live in a world where as soon as there's a headline that there is a virus that causes mortality, you have enemies around this world going, ooh, I could maybe play around with it. Now bioweapons. The bioweapon landscape and drive is bigger than we know. And it's very, very scary. So for those of us in public health, or those of us in healthcare, we're concerned about that. COVID should have never happened. It did. Whether it was an accident, whether it was a mutation that just went the wrong way, or whether it was a manipulation in a lab, or whether it was an accidental manipulation where you're housing something in an artificial environment and the virus doesn't know how to react because it's not a natural environment, so then it decides to go and do its own thing. Either way, when we mess with nature, it bites us in the butt. And so what makes us concerned is if we do have these things that are very lethal, like avian flu with birds. This is why everybody's kind of freaked out about the bird flu, because if it kills birds that rapidly, we're talking a few mutations away where it could start killing humans. There's only been one human that I think died from the bird flu, and we had one person who was hospitalized for it. But so thank God we don't see that sort of mortality. But again, it could just be a mutation change away. So what does our CDC need to do? Well, one, our CDC needs to be aware of it, start working on antidotes or vaccines. Number two is the World Health Organization needs to do their job. And they need to make sure that when there are these very highly lethal viruses or pathogens or bacteria, that you don't have other countries studying them, playing around with them, not using proper lab protocols, and then possibly leaking them. So it is a warning for all of us to be aware. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Don't go away.
Hi, everyone. If you've been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, listen up. We have legal professionals standing by right now to answer your questions for free. They'll tell you if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth. Call 800-710-5100. I'm here with spokesman John Wolf. So, John, tell our listeners who should call right now.
Well, Maria, first off, thank you for having me join you to answer the listeners' questions. Now, as far as who should call in, anyone who's been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, give us a call right now and find out how much your case is potentially worth. Call 800-710-5100.
Thanks, John. You heard it, folks. If you think you deserve compensation, call now to find out how much you qualify for. 800-710-5100.
Advertisement sponsored by Legal Help Center. May not be available in all states.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems. For example,
diesel fuel cetane levels.
The cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
In a study, it was found that 33% of 44 herbal supplements had no trace of the advertised herb. Now, don't let that happen to you. Hi, this is Dr. Mitch. If you want to ensure quality, please go to TotalWellness.com. Supplements made for physicians only now available to you too. TotalWellness.com, helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. Wow, all right, a lot of opinions on this next topic. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube. Click like and subscribe. So you can't help the biggest headline that came out of yesterday when Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, met with Trump. People ask, how are we supposed to pronounce Israel? Like, we've been pronouncing Iran. Iran is Iran. We've been calling it Iran, but it's Iran, Iraq. So Israel is Israel. That's how you pronounce it. But Israel, in English, we'll say Israel. But it's pronounced Israel. But it's okay. If you say Israel, no one's going to have a problem with that. So that's fine. So when Benjamin Netanyahu met with President Trump, it was a very interesting meeting. It was very, you could see Netanyahu was watching the press corps. He almost was giggling in that, because they do things different in Israel. It's a lot more organized. I don't want to say organized in a bad sense, but, Trump, it's so much different from what he saw with Biden, where with Trump, everybody's trying to ask questions. They're trying to get answers. They're able to ask questions. And it's probably something he hadn't seen in a while. And he even admitted that when both countries work together, they can bring out really good goals and what needs to be done in the Middle East. But when light shines through, which has kind of happened, when there's space between the countries, bad things can happen. And he kind of alluded to how he didn't have the same sort of support that he's having now with Trump, saying President Trump is probably the biggest pro-Israel president ever. He was very adamant about how Trump was, and his envoy was very integral in some of the hostage release. So it was very good. And you see Trump was pleased. You see them working together. But a very interesting idea that came out of their meeting, which they brought up yesterday, is a U.S. controlling Gaza. Now, I know a lot of people were going, they gasped, their jaw dropped, and they were, well, wait a second. And even, Netanyahu even said the same thing, after the jaw dropping of what Trump says a lot of times. Sometimes when they close their mouth, they're like, wait a second, that idea might not be so bad. So right now, no American troops. We're not that. From what I understand, that's not happening. It's just an idea that's being touted and looked upon. But Gaza is a strip of land. I think it's like 25 miles by 4 or 5 miles. It's a very small strip of land in a beautiful part of the area, along the Mediterranean Sea. And it is sadly, it has been a very contentious place where radicals and terrorists such as Hamas have taken over. And there are millions of people who live there that want freedom, that don't want to be around bombs, that don't want to be used as shields when Hamas decides to go over to the Israel side, kill and behead kids, rape women, grab hostages, and then come back and hide behind schools and children in Gaza. And so Trump has suggested that because Israel gave up Gaza back in 2005. I don't want to use the word give up, but Gaza, I think, has been shared between Egypt and Israel. And so Israel decided, you know what, you guys want to manage things yourself, that's fine. If you want us out, we're out. And they left in 2005. Well, it has deteriorated badly. And so Trump highlighted that in his speech and said, what if the U.S. controls it? That might bring stability and peace to the Middle East. Now, of course, I was getting texts going, how would that work? What does that look like? What does that mean? Does that mean Hamas now are American citizens? Do they get to come to America? And so we don't know any of the details. But I've been saying for years that Israel is the helicopter pad of America in the Middle East. America, people always ask, why is America helping Israel so much? Why are they helping Israel so much? We need to be more isolationist because Israel does a lot. Israel gives them a lot of access, a lot of intelligence, and Israel is a huge partner. Not to mention, it's in America's best interest to preserve the historic sites and Bethlehem and Jerusalem and ensuring that Israel will never fall to an entity that will destroy the history or destroy the land and destroy the inhabitants in them. And so, but what America gets in return is they get a lot of intelligence, intel, they get access to the Middle East. This strip, this Gaza Strip, if Palestinians in Gaza do not want Israel running things, and I'm sure they don't want Hamas running things, I think the world doesn't want Hamas running things. What about America running things? What if America operates, it's a small strip of land, while it's rebuilding, and they say it's going to be taking at least a decade and a half to rebuild after the war? What could that do? Would it ensure some stability? Now, I still don't know all the details, but I got to tell you, there's a lot of BS that happens in the Middle East. There's a lot of, already Americans are being attacked. Hostages were taken. So for America's interest, I don't think it's a bad idea to have a territory or have a position there. For Israel, it helps because now they don't have that threat, even though there's always threats surrounding them, but they don't have Hamas, who has vowed to come back and do it again. That single threat could be eliminated. Not to mention, if America's there, they're not going to want a lot of this BS that's been happening, because now they are still within Israel's territory or around Israel's territory. Now, people say, yeah, but then America will take over Israel. No, they won't. They won't. I mean, I don't know who would get elected later that would try to do that. That would be stupid. I don't think God would let it. So, no, I'm not even looking at that. I understand everybody thinks Trump is an expansionist president. He wants to get as much territory as possible. But I have to admit on that single point that right now it's a mess. It's not livable. You have Hamas running things in that you can't be LGBTQAI plus. You can't be, you're very, as opposed to Israel, just right across the border, Israel, you could be free to be who you are. It's a very fascist dictatorial rule by terrorists. And what if they weren't in power there? Since the world is not a fan of Israel running Gaza, take that out of the equation. Israel doesn't want Gaza because they really, really want Gaza. They just want to make sure that they don't get attacked again. And they want to make sure Hamas doesn't come back. So that could solve that. Now, I don't want any more American troops to have to be in areas that they don't have to be. I don't want there to be any more killing. I know some people say, this could be another Vietnam. This could be another, this is not a war for, at this point in terms of, territory and rule in the area. This is an area where hostages are still there. America could go in, get those hostages out, find them, get Hamas out of there. Hamas could go back to wherever they came from, stop the funding of terrorists, and rebuild a Riviera. People look at the Tel Aviv beaches as exquisite. They are. That strip of land, it's amazing. And Hamas did not do that for Gaza. They did not. And they blamed every other country. Israel's been out since 2000. They've been out for 10 years, 20 years now. So I want there to be peace. I want Palestinians, Arabs, Muslims, Jews, Israelis, Christians, Catholics in the area to not have to fear another October 7th. And if it involves America getting involved, I don't think that's the worst idea out there. Now, we do have to think this through. If it does become a territory, do then individuals such as people who were associated with Hamas now get territorial benefits? Do they get to come to mainland? We have to really be careful about wolves in sheep's clothing. We don't want Hamas or anybody associated with terrorism. We love Palestinians and Muslims and Arabs and Jews, but we don't want Hamas or terrorism. So we need to make sure that that's not going to then come into play. So they have to figure out what the legalities would be. Also, what would that take in terms of our military? But I got to tell you, our military has been attacked in other areas by the Houthis and for America to have a closer base, would definitely be in America's best interest. 1-877-Daliah, don't go away.
Let's see, if something costs less, but people are happier with it, that sounds like something to look into, and that's MediShare. Maybe you've heard switching to MediShare to pay for healthcare can save the typical family $500 a month, and that's huge, but it's also true that people are way more satisfied after making the switch, too. The customer satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. Double. MediShare works. It's been around for more than a quarter century, and members have shared more than $3 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network. So, yeah, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. A very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. 855-SHARE-40. That's 855-SHARE-40. 855-SHARE-40.
Well, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOC-DALI. So some of my federal worker listeners have asked if I've gotten any new scoop on their jobs. And this is, listen, on one end, I understand why Trump has to clean up the federal government and, workers that are not coming to work and possibly not doing their job. And, not that everybody who works remotely isn't doing their job. I work remotely and I work, but I get that he needs to know who's coming to the office, who's working, and what the taxpayer dollars are going for. Because taxpayers are pretty ticked off that there's empty office buildings that they're paying rent on while those workers get to sit home and collect a really good pay, salary, benefits, etc. On the other end, it seems like every day somebody's getting fired. And this February 6th deadline, tomorrow, is a deadline that federal workers that do work on site are contemplating. We've heard at least 20,000, I'm sure the number is higher, people have taken the deal that President Trump has given, saying, look, for those of you who have not been working on site since COVID, if you want your job, you need to come back to work. You need to come back to work, to the office. You can't just stay home. You have till Thursday to sign this email. They gave the email out last week. You have till the 6th to say you resign. You'll still get paid through September 30th, the end of the fiscal year, even if you don't show up to work. But then you're done. And you are no longer than a federal worker. So a lot of people who are working from home or think they're going to get another job or whatever, they think they'll file for unemployment. A lot of them are taking the deal. But you have some federal workers who actually are working on site, but they're watching the news and they're seeing how U.S. aid, those workers are fired. EPA is going to be, purging extra workers. The Department of Education may be closing. And so I understand some of you are a little nervous. And you have until tomorrow to decide if maybe you want that deal, because if you end up getting fired, then, you missed out on extra months of pay. Well, I don't think those extra months of pay go to people who I think those are strictly the ones who have been working remotely. Now, I understand, though, every federal worker got this email, so I could be wrong. This could be a deal for every single federal worker, even J.D. Vance. But he's been coming to the office. Yeah. I know people are always like, what does he do? Everything else is. We hear more about Elon Musk and that. I think he's doing what Trump needs him to do. Be there for Senate votes, learn, listen, right? And because he might be taking over in 4 years. So if you are a federal worker, as I said this before, be very informed, read the writing on the wall. If you like your job and your job is integral and your employer can vouch, that you are doing a good job, I think you are less at risk than somebody who isn't there. That's somebody who isn't on site. The people who are not on site, they're going to probably be canned first. But then when they are closing, they'll either close departments that they don't feel they need, which Trump has said he might do with the Department of Education and with U.S. aid. But then in terms of IRS, in terms of FDA, in terms of EPA, et cetera, they are going to be looking at which positions are necessary. Now, we all like to think that our job is necessary. We all like to think that we really, really are needed. But if your boss or your department head has to make a decision, well, we could, they'll limit this position. We could combine these two. Now, you might want to have a conversation with your department head. I mean, if you really think you are in a position where you might get fired and you don't want to be fired, talk to your department head. You have 24 hours still before this February 6th deadline comes in to get that deal. And you could talk. By the way, if you don't get the deal, I know a lot of people are like, oh, no, what if I don't get the deal? What if I don't? You could still get unemployment if you do get fired. But I understand it's really nice to get full pay till September 30th. But here's the thing. If you like your job, I don't want you quitting your job. If you're doing a good job, we need federal workers. The last thing Trump needs right now is to do massive hiring. So what he wants to do is he wants to see who he has that's good and who he has that isn't. We got some really good federal workers in there. So I don't think he's going to want to get rid of everybody. But he's going to need advice. And he's going to need direction from the current departments. So if you've been I'm going to be lay low Larry, where nobody knows who I am and what the laying low might help in some respect. But if you think your department head is going to be asked, look, who do you keep? Who do you not? You might want to make yourself known. Especially if you've been doing a good job. If you haven't been doing a good job and you're lay low Larry, then yeah, you might want to just continue to lay low or whatever. But if you've been doing a good job and you don't want to be stereotyped as that, you might want to let your employer know. Also, you might want to let your employer know that you like your job. Remember I told you guys at the Christmas party? Don't be asking for raises. Don't be flirting with the boss. But it sure is a nice time, a nice opportunity to tell your boss, I like my job. Thank you for giving me a place to work that I like and where I feel I could grow. I love my job. And I just want to thank you for that. That goes a long way. I've been an employee most of my life, and I've been an employer. And as an employee, I always thank the boss. Even if I didn't like the boss, I still thank the boss. And as an employer, I always wanted to know that my employees were happy. If my employees weren't happy, it manifests in a variety of ways. Stealing, trying to waste time on the clock. I want them happy. I want them fulfilled. So maybe if you're concerned and you don't want to leave, and this is something look, I've been with the federal government for this many years. I love what I'm doing, but I'm a little nervous about what do you suggest I do? Because or how can I help? I know you must be going through stress. I'm hearing department heads are being told they might have to consolidate. Is there something I could do if that comes to it that would help? Do you need me to add on extra tasks? Because I'm willing to work with you and do what needs to be done. Now, if you aren't and you're like, look, I'm already overworked, to hell with this, well, then you don't do that. But if you're like, you know what? I really have a cush job. I'll let the boss know that I'm here for extra help if they need. I would take advantage of that. So very interestingly, President Trump told us yesterday that one of his cabinet secretaries' job is to figure out how to fire herself. He told reporters that Linda McMahon was nominated to lead the U.S. Department of Education with a goal of putting herself out of a job. And the reason why is he wants to look at the Department of Education and figure out how to bring it back to the states. And this is something that has been very controversial because parents are going, how come some school districts, these kids are acing their standardized tests and proficiencies, and other cities, like we see with Baltimore, failing? No child is supposed to be left behind. That's the job of the Department of Education. And we are hearing that they have failed. Now, it doesn't mean the whole Department of Education needs to be closed. But, should states have more control? So it'll be really interesting to see what happens with that. 1-877 Daliah.
Hi, everyone. If you've been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, listen up. We have legal professionals standing by right now. They'll tell you if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth. Call 800-910-7500. That's 800-910-7500. Call now to find out how much your case could be worth.
Advertisement sponsored by Legal Help Center. May not be available in all states.
In a study, it was found that 33% of 44 herbal supplements had no trace of the advertised herb. Don't let that happen to you. Hi, this is Dr. Mitch. If you want to ensure quality, please go to TotalWellness.com. Supplements made for physicians, only now available to you too. TotalWellness.com, helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
Self-reliance. It's not a phrase we hear much in our culture these days. It might conjure up images of pioneers, the West, rifles, strapping men, and strong women. But what does it mean for us in today's world? The New American Magazine has just released its latest collector's edition, Self-Reliance, Foundation of Freedom. In it, the New American authors outline the necessity of self-reliance for a free people, tips for self-reliant living, and the importance of not giving up hope. This unique edition includes articles on the self-sufficiency of the founders, preparing for a worst-case scenario, firearms, financial self-reliance, the importance of community, and many other topics by expert writers. Now, for a limited time, the New American is offering a bundle of 3 collector's editions: Self-Reliance, The Great Reset, and Trump World for just $19.95. Available at shopjbs.org. Visit shopjbs.org today.
Back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Daliah, 1-877-DOCDALI. So many of you like your marijuana, your cannabis, your THC, your pot, your roaches, your dubs. I get it. It's now a common pastime. It's been legal for a while. A lot of people are doing it. I had a patient, I think this was earlier this morning, who apparently tried a new strain, and she did not like the way she felt. She started vomiting profusely. I sent her to the ER. She didn't want to go, but she was not doing well. She thought it was a new strain. She uses it regularly, medical marijuana, and she felt really disoriented, and there wasn't much I could do over the phone. So all I could do was urge that she get to the hospital, and I offered to call her an ambulance, that she had family with her who would take her. But we don't talk a lot about heavy or regular cannabis use and what that could be doing. And we know a lot about alcohol. Alcohol's been around for a very, very long time, and it's been legal, which I support. And so we do know that people who drink alcohol on a regular basis can hurt their liver, can hurt their kidneys, their stomach lining, their brain. Well, what about marijuana? Well, we've talked about marijuana and heart disease. We've talked about marijuana and smoking in your lungs. We've talked about stroke, psychosis, but it's just not, people aren't feeling it. And I think the reason why is we've approached marijuana much differently than alcohol. You know, marijuana is not always safe. There's true medication formulations now, Marinol, Epidiolex, I think, Epiduo, what is it? No. For Dravet's syndrome, seizure disorder. Is it Epidiolex? So there's pharmaceutical formulations, and that kind of gives people the belief that, okay, marijuana is medicinal. And I do believe that marijuana can be. I believe that if we study it, which is why I voted to legalize it, because I wanted us to be able to study it. But the average person is not just letting the scientists deal with it and wait till it comes in a pharmaceutical preparation. They're hitting the marijuana shops. Well, the big question people would ask is, where's the data that it's bad and where's the data that it's good? We're a little slow on the data to show how good it could be because, again, these studies have to be funded. There have to be there have to be volunteers, and it's still illegal, technically, nationally. So that makes it a little harder. In terms of the data on how it's bad, that's also kind of limited because it's still not 100% legal in every state. And you don't have a lot of people honest about their use. So it isn't until they get a drug test or they end up in an ER for us to start gathering data. I mean, we are slowly having studies where people will admit to doing that, but there's a lot of people who go, look, I'm a driver. I won't be able to get a CDL if I admit that I'm doing marijuana. So no, I'm not going to be part of your study. So a state that probably would be ideal to get data in is Colorado. Colorado was one of the first to legalize it. And so a lot of our traffic accident data, a lot of our medical data, we're getting from Colorado. So a new study has come out from the University of Colorado Anschutz Medical Campus. They looked at a marijuana use, but the effect, whether it's recent or lifetime, and what it does to the brain and cognition. And the study was published in JAMA Open Network, and it's one of the largest of its kind, using brain imaging technology to examine the effects of cannabis on 1,000 young adults from 22 to 36 years old. And they found what they did is they looked at their working memory or the ability to retain and use information to perform tasks like solving a math problem. And neural response was measured, according to Fox News, through 7 cognitive tests, looking at working memory, reward, emotion, language, motor skills, such as tapping a finger to map brain control, relational assessment, and theory of mind. And results showed that 63% of heavy lifetime cannabis users demonstrated reduced brain activity while completing a working memory task. Meanwhile, 68% of recent cannabis users exhibited a similar impact. So when people say, but you know what, I've been doing it for a long time, so my body's used to it, it looks like it's still showing deficit. The researchers concluded that cannabis had a statistically significant effect on brain function during working memory tasks, but was less significant in other tasks. There was reduced brain activity in areas like decision-making, memory, attention, emotional processing, which, by the way, we need when we drive. Lead study author Dr. Goen is an assistant professor of radiology at the University of Colorado School of Medicine, stressed the importance of studying the effects of cannabis on health as it continues to grow globally. And I agree with this because we do need to understand the risks. They say if you need to do a cognitive task, you might want to refrain from using cannabis. No duh. And it could help you improve your performance. But you need to be careful because if you quit cold turkey, if you're a lifetime user and then you quit cold turkey, that could also cause an effect. So, a lot of you might not realize that you've been using every day. I'll ask patients, so have you used marijuana recently? They'll say yes. I go, when? They'll say, well, last night. Okay, and how often? Well, every night, patients are saying. Well, if you're using it every night, why? Is it to sleep? Is it because you're bored? Is it to de-stress after work? And marijuana doesn't get out of your system that quickly. It could be in your system for at least a month. And so now what happens cumulatively? And I just don't think the general public understands that. Another reason why we struggle to study it is because there's not just one marijuana type. You have indica, sativa, you have hybrid strains, you have a lot of substrains, and you have different plant makers and farmers and cultivators and distributors. So when somebody says, well, marijuana does this, what marijuana? What brand? What strain? From what country? And I know once we get the pharmaceutical companies in, it gets expensive. Like once the government got involved, it got expensive. People got taxed. Not sure where all the money went, but it got more expensive. So a lot of you might not realize that you're using marijuana all the time. You're using gummies, you're using, and it's something you really need to talk to your medical provider about. And I don't want you to have an accelerated decline in cognition because you're using something that you don't realize could be affecting it. We know that alcohol does. We know that sleeping pills affect our brains. We know that sugar and bad food, we know that smoking does. But what if your marijuana gummies are also doing it? What if what you're smoking, on the porch each night is doing it? And I get everybody's looking for a way to relax, and they're thinking marijuana is safer than alcohol. And for some people, it is. But my concern is alcohol has always been, in the movies and in, it's a bad thing. It's a bad thing. And now that marijuana is legal, they're looking at it as this is medicinal. This helps me with this. It helps with that. I don't have to take my pharmaceuticals. I could sleep. And people are looking at it as vitamin M. But it's not a vitamin if your body doesn't necessarily need it. It could hurt. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH.
Did you know that healthy arteries make a gas? Yes, actually 3 known gases. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch, and nitric oxide is a gas that's readily made all day long to keep our arteries open by relaxing the blood vessel walls. By doing this, our circulation is increased, bringing blood, oxygen, and nutrients to every part of your body. Both age and poor diet can lead to a loss of this precious gas, and in turn, blood pressure can go up, energy can go down, and you can get tingling in your hands and feet. Well, our product, Ultimate Nitric Oxide, can easily help fix this lack of nitric oxide. Go to TotalWellness.com. That's TotalWellness.com, where we are helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.